Hey everyone, my name is Parker.
I'm Mike.
I'm Seid.
And this is the Try Hard podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to yet another episode of the Try Hard podcast. And as you heard, today we are joined by yet another very special guest. But before we get into it and introduce him, we would first like to thank the sponsor of our episode, the Naperville Acupuncture Center. If you're in the Chicagoland area and are looking to get some dry needling or acupuncture done, I cannot recommend them enough. I've been going to go see Frank and Angela every week for the past couple of months, and they have been key in keeping me healthy and enabling me to elevate my training. As a special offer, if you mention my name or this podcast during your visit, you'll receive a discount on your very first treatment. All right, back to the show. Good day, mate. Welcome back, everyone, to the Try Hard podcast. Joining us today from down under overseas in a completely different time zone in the future, I believe, is the one and only Lachlan. How do you say your last name?
So it's Lachlan Earnshaw. I'm not sure why, but for some reason, every American I've ever spoken to has said Lachlan, but it's Lachlan. Lachlan. Yeah, it's a strange cultural difference, I think.
Well, hopefully we won't mess that up too much during
And then
this.
last name is Earnshaw.
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 All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, we have quite a bit of time to practice today, that's for sure.
That's good.
For those of you that are new to the channel, usually it's just me, our channel podcast. I just filmed an intro for my YouTube, so I'm still a little messed up on that. But it's usually just me, Mike, and Seid, who are all age group triathletes. So we talk about our training, races, race recaps, whatever it may be. And sometimes we have guests come on, like today. As I mentioned, we have Lachlan coming on.
There we go.
Actually, Lachlan, why don't you introduce yourself, kind of who you are, what you do, and then I know all of us have lots of questions for you. And then if you want to ask us any questions, and then we'll see how much time we have left, and then yeah, we'll go from there.
Great. Yeah, sounds good. I mean, I'm very similar to you boys, I think, in that I am a 25-year-old age group triathlete. Started triathlon in 2022 was my first triathlon as a full distance Ironman. So I was one of those people that just jumped straight in. And then as I was training for that first Ironman, I decided it would be an interesting idea to start filming some of my training and posting it up online. And from there, I started doing a lot of training logs. And since then, I've done a few challenge videos. But all in all, a nice amateur age group mid-pack triathlete that probably trains a little bit too excessively at times, but I really enjoy it and try and make some videos here and there when I can.
I think that's pretty much the story of all of our lives, training a little bit too much.
Yeah. I think this like triathlon seems to attract a lot of people that really like to the people that can become quite obsessive, I think, especially because it's a sport that's so numbers oriented, right? Like you've got your FTP on a bike, splits per 100 in the pool, and then running pace. So there's so many different things that are so trackable. So for all the people that can become quite single-minded and focused on something, it's definitely a sport that encourages that, especially because it's a sport where you can train so much. Like you can't really train this much for football, right? Like you'd break your legs if you showed up to training 4 hours a day, 7 days a week. But with triathlon, it seems to be a sport where you can train a lot and then the numbers make it very somewhat addictive, so that the people who really can become quite obsessive over something, I think triathlon is a place where a lot of us end up.
Yep, definitely. I completely agree. So, like as you said, I also my first triathlon was a full distance Ironman too. So I just jumped in a couple of
Yeah.
months, we're gonna do it, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be a good time. And I was like, but I have no
Yeah.
idea what I'm doing. So that's why I started talking with Parker. So how did you like decide to just jump into an Ironman? What was the reason behind that?
Okay, yeah. So my story with triathlon is that throughout high school and uni, I was working in a gym. So I was a personal trainer. I spent a lot of time. The way I am about triathlon now was probably just as serious when I was 15, 16 about lifting weights. So I was super focused on that as well. And then 2020, the gyms closed. And so I started running. obviously with COVID, the gym's closed. So I started running. And then around that same time, I started dating my now girlfriend, whose dad was doing Ironman triathlons. And I think that gave me the idea, seeing as the gyms were shut and was already doing some running. I think the next evolution was, get a bike, start swimming. And then before you knew it, I think I'd signed up for my first 70.3. And then that race ended up getting cancelled due to COVID. So I just kept training through and ended up signing up for a full distance Ironman once that one was cancelled. So I started running 2020, and then probably halfway through 2021, it started to become more triathlon training. And then May of 2022 is when I did the first full distance Ironman. Yeah. So it was one of those, I think there was a big endurance craze that came over during COVID. It's probably because a lot of the gyms closed down. And I was one of those people who got my first Strava account during COVID and then got onto Zwift. And I was one of those endurance people that migrated over.
And now was your first, because this is how actually I found out about Lachlan, was through YouTube. I've never heard of him before. And then on my home feed or whatever, I get this recommended video. I did an indoor Ironman. I was like, what? Indoor Ironman? Like I already knew how much an Ironman sucked. I was like, no way, this cannot. And I think it was during, because you posted that in the winter, or it'd be your summer, but in the winter, correct?
Summer, yeah.
And so I think I actually watched that video while I was doing the PRL full route on Zwift. It was like my motivation to finish that route.
Yeah,
so the longest route, I was like, if this guy can do an indoor Ironman, I can finish this route.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, was that your first one? And then also, what made you decide to do an indoor Ironman and also like film it?
Okay, so that one was the end of 2022. So that was December 2022. So what happened was I did my first Ironman Australia in May of that year. I went 10:22 or 10:24, I think was my time for that one. And then not long after that, like I obviously got the Ironman bug, as most of us do after our first one. And I really wanted to do another race, but at the time and even now, like I don't have tons of money to spend on, especially Australia. There's really only 3 Ironman races you can do. There's Port Macquarie, which is close to where I live. There's Cairns, which is right up the top of Australia, or there's Western Australia, which is obviously the far west of Australia. So for me to get to an Ironman would cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And I was already doing a lot of training indoors. I was probably doing too much training indoors in hindsight, but a big thing with me is I didn't feel comfortable riding out on the road, especially with all the cars. Like it just seemed like a lot of unnecessary risk. And I was doing a lot of training indoors. And so the idea of doing an indoor Ironman to me was that, okay, I can fully control the entire setup. I can choose what day I want to do it on, can control the locations completely. And I can train very specifically for it because it's all just indoor training. I actually really enjoyed indoor training is the other thing. So I was happy enough to do a full distance Ironman indoors as a way of still getting a race in without having to pay any money to anyone. Like that race cost me maybe $15 worth of Gatorade, and that's about it. I think I bought like a Pepsi at the 30K mark from the gym, and then like an ice cream at the end. So like, you compare. So if I was thinking to myself, like if I had to go over to Western Australia and race, I think it was going to cost somewhere around $5,000, right, to do this race. Or I could spend like $30 and do it indoors, which in all honesty, I actually don't mind training and racing indoors. So I was happy enough just to do an indoor Ironman and then filmed it because I actually just enjoy making videos. It's a bit of a creative outlet, but I also, just enjoy the filmmaking process and love the editing. So that was the story behind that one. And in all honesty, I would do indoor. Like if there was I watched the is it the Super League Triathlon that does the arena games? If they have official races that were indoors where you could just bring your own bike and bring your own trainer, I'd sign up for those. Especially if they could do like, imagine you could say $200 to do an Ironman because they don't have to close down anything, BYO nutrition, and then we all just set up our bikes indoors and race in a pool and then jump on a treadmill. Like I'd love to do that kind of racing. So it sounds brutal, but I don't know. It doesn't actually feel that much harder to me than doing it outdoors.
That would be a pretty interesting concept if Ironman held like just like at least a one-time indoor Ironman and see like what field they could attract and how they would set it up. That'd be pretty interesting.
It'd be pretty cool, especially if you were to just do it as like pure, say on the bike, right? Your speed is just purely watts per kilo. And then it takes out any kind of like, this person has a better bike or a better aero setup, or this person's it's just purely fitness then, right?
Yeah, just give
The
everyone.
problem is that you can't really have more than, say, 10 or 15 competitors because there's just not enough room in a pool. Maybe if you were to do it like in a lake or something, and it's not exactly indoors, but you know what I mean? Like it's still somewhat feasible if you were to just set up a heap of trainers on the side of a lake somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, or a potential like wave start into the swim.
Yeah, true.
It'd be interesting.
Multi-days, yeah.
A couple hours apart from each other.
You wouldn't have to worry about crossing the center line.
Yeah. It's actually good. You can listen to music the whole time. I had like family there the whole day and hanging out, chatting with them. So it's nice.
It would be
Great way
like
to do it.
it would be like one of those silent discos where everyone's got like their own headset.
True. Yeah, that would be funny.
What was the hardest part of it? Was it because I personally, the swim and the bike don't seem too bad because I swim 4,200 yards not every day, but almost every day. The bike, I do 100, a 5-hour ride on Zwift almost every week leading up to Ironman Texas. But I feel like doing a marathon on the treadmill, for me personally, I feel like that would be tough. Well, was that the hardest part for you?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's the thing with that though is that running is probably the one where I feel the most comfortable on. And I've always been able to, I don't know why, I've always been able to run faster on a treadmill than I have on just regular road. And I did get a fair bit of feedback saying that if you don't put a treadmill on an incline, that it's really easy. So I was like, oh, fair enough, whatever. Okay, let's see you go do one if you want to say it's that much easier. But maybe it is easier if you don't put it on an incline, and I didn't do that. So no, I don't know. The swim was arguably the hardest because the water was really cold. So that pool that I was in wasn't heated, and it was in December, but it had just come off winter, and it takes a long time for an outdoor pool to heat up. Like there's a large volume of water in there, basically. So it takes a couple months of good sunshine for that water to heat up, and I was really, really cold getting out of that water.
Did you do that in a wetsuit or no wetsuit?
No wetsuit.
I forgot. I know I watched the video. I was looking back at like all of your videos to see when was the time I watched one of your videos, and then been following along since then.
Well, I know Mike, you had a question on one of his other more recent challenge videos, didn't you?
Yeah, I see like the beer marathon and then the milk marathon.
Yeah.
Which was more challenging to complete, you think?
Or the one where you had that relay.
Yeah, the relay was awesome. Yeah. In terms of what was harder, beer marathon or milk marathon, without a question, the beer marathon was way harder.
Yeah.
So the milk marathon actually wasn't that hard because there's a lot of sugar in milk, right? And I think I have a fairly strong stomach. So there was no like stomach discomfort there. And I'm certainly not lactose intolerant. Like I love milk. I drink it all the time. I think it was just like I did that one with my brother, and we just enjoy, like, he's behind the camera in a lot of my videos. So the indoor Ironman, he was filming that entire thing. I think we just enjoy like the fun, creative aspect of endurance sports. And so that's like, oh, let's just do a milk marathon because it's just iconic to do a whole marathon drinking only milk, and it's kind of funny. And we grew up on an old dairy farm, so we're like, oh, let's go back out to the farm and run it there. It was just a good, like, fun challenge where we're not taking anything too seriously. Like we ran it at the same pace, but the beer marathon instead, like that was so brutal after 20, maybe like 21 to 28K. You know, when you like normally hit the wall in a marathon, imagine that you're also drunk and it's late at night and you really want to go home, but you've still got to drink like 4 more beers and run 20 more K. So that one was like the video. It was actually, so what happened was after we ran that and we went home, and I opened up my laptop the next day and started looking at all the footage, and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm not even going to be able to make a video out of this because the second half of that run was so miserable. All the clips you see, like in the second half of that run, they're the only moments where there was like any positivity or good vibes. I'm like, all right, grab that, put it in the video. The rest of it, we're just like, oh, everyone was so done with it. We just wanted to go home. But they're like, the boys that did that are a bunch of absolute soldiers, like just champions that would not quit, and just like it was the biggest battle to get to the finish line. But it was a another one of those ones where we're like, guys, it's just iconic. Let's just do it. And I couldn't believe that those guys actually said yes to doing it, to be honest, because I thought I was never going to find anyone else to actually say yes to that idea. But yeah, it was pretty brutal. It was fun, but one of those once in a lifetime experiences.
How about comparing that to a marathon during an Ironman? How does that stack up?
So I said this to the boys afterwards. The beer marathon is harder than an Ironman. Absolutely harder than an Ironman. You could probably do it in an easier way. Yeah. So if you boys are like, oh, we do Ironmans, we're tough, go do a beer marathon and then tell me you guys are tough. I'm just kidding. But it's it's just you could do it a lot easier, right? If you were to start, say, during the day and you were to like properly hydrate and prep before it, and then you had like a planned route to run. Like we were running in the middle of the night and we'd all been up all day. So one of the guys, Campbell, he was the one that had golf booked in the next morning. That day, that day he got up that morning because he does Ironmans as well. So he's going to do Ironman Australia with me again this year. He'd done a 90K bike ride that morning, and then he played cricket all day. So he did 50 overs of cricket, which is like 8 hours of standing on your feet throughout the day. Left cricket at 6 p.m., drove straight to the bar with us, and then started that marathon at 6:30 that night. Oh. So he was like an absolute champion. Another one of the boys, Moa, it was his first ever marathon, and he took it on like 4 hours notice. He asked one of his mates, Wilf, who was doing it with us, he said, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" He's like, "I'm gonna," tells him he's gonna run a beer marathon. Asked him if he wants to do it. He's like, "Yeah, righto," and just comes and like runs his first ever marathon as a beer marathon. So there was a few things in there that were just legendary, but absolutely the most brutal endurance event that I've done.
And maybe if you want to quickly explain for the people that don't know what is a beer marathon? How exactly?
Of course.
I assume you didn't drink every quarter mile.
No. So typically, we took the inspiration from a beer mile, which is where you run 1 mile drinking a beer every 400 meters. And so we just basically extrapolated that out to be, okay, well, instead of every 400 meters, let's have one every 4 kilometers, and we'll do it for a full marathon. So it ends up being 10 beers over 42 kilometers, or basically it's 1 beer every 2.6 miles, you Americans. So pretty brutal, but we got it. And it ended up, we actually weren't drinking beers the entire time. We had like some shots, and we kind of went off the rails a little bit there. We did like some tequila shots and some sake shots. And yeah, it was a bit of a chaotic night, but we got it done. And we ran it all through Sydney. So it was super hot, super humid, and kind of brutal, but it was a fun one. And I think that's the sort of thing that, as much as like I am training for triathlons, and that's what I spend most of my time on, but I really enjoy making those sort of videos and doing those sort of challenges. So that's what I'm all about, and I think that's what I'm going to try and focus on more in the future. Well, not necessarily focused on, but I'm going to try and do more of those things throughout the future. Yeah, they're just good fun.
So I saw you also did like a backwards Ironman. So how can you like tell us about how that went? Like I just can't imagine hopping after running a marathon. That just sounds miserable to me.
Yeah, I think that was again a similar mindset to when I did the indoor Ironman, right? Which is like, I want to do these things and really push myself. Like if Ironman races were free, I'd do them all the time. Right? Like I do one every like 8 weeks, but I was like, oh, I just don't want to spend heaps of money on doing another race again. I've already done one Ironman this year. And then I'd already done the indoor Ironman, and I was like, oh, okay, well, what could be really fun is if I just go out, challenge myself, and I'll do it in reverse order and see how I fare for that. So I did the full marathon first, then 180K on the ride, and then 3.8K in the pool straight after that. So that one wasn't it was actually probably easier than I expected if I was to describe the feeling. So obviously the marathon you run fresh, right? So it just feels like running a marathon, but I was keeping it very controlled, right? So it was kind of like a steady, kind of like the sort of intensity I would do for a regular long run, but I just did it for the full marathon. But then getting on the bike, so the way I felt on the bike is very similar to the way you feel running after in an Ironman, right? Which is that as soon as I got on the bike, I was already at that tired stage. So if you imagine in an Ironman, typically around the 140K mark, so just below, like say 90 miles, I tend to feel like really sick of being on the bike, right? Like I'm ready to get off and start running. Whereas with the backwards Ironman, that's how I felt as soon as I got on the bike. So it just became the longest, most brutal slog to get this bike done. And I tried to get it done like as quick as I could. I didn't have any race wheels on. So I just rode this super flat 4-kilometer straight out near my house, and I just went out and back, out and back, out and back. So I think I did like 30 laps of this 4-kilometer straight, just trying to go as fast as I could. But it became so hot that I had to take my TT helmet off and just put my road bike helmet on because it's summer in Australia. So it was like 35 Celsius, which is, I think is like 100 degrees for you guys. So yeah, it was super, super hot. And then, but the thing is, so I got through the bike and it was just the most brutal slog to get to the finish line. But as soon as I got in the pool, I was expecting to be suffering really bad with cramps the entire time. So the reason why I did it in the pool is because I thought to myself, if I swim this in open water, there's a pretty good chance that I drown and die because I'll cramp at some stage. So I was like, okay, for safety reasons, I at least need a lane rope next to me that I can like grab onto and some people to supervise me. So I swam it in the pool, and the pool was actually, it was that same outdoor pool, so it still hadn't quite warmed up after winter. So it was actually really nice and cool and fresh. I actually felt really good throughout the swim. It was actually the best feeling to jump in the water after spending like 10 hours out in the 30-degree heat all day. And yeah, just swam basically as slow as I could. The only thing I had to consider, I think I had to swim under like an hour 30 because the pool was going to close at 6 p.m. that night. So that was my deadline. I knew I had to swim at least 2 minutes per 100 or something like that. But I was like not in any rush at all because I was totally exhausted at that stage. And I thought I was going to have to stop for nutrition, but I must have just been swimming like so slow and aerobically that I managed to get through it without any breaks. But I know I was super dehydrated in the pool because every time, like, you know, when you're swimming and you get a bit of water in your mouth and you like instantly you try and spit it out, right? But for some reason, my brain was thinking to myself, oh my God, water, that's amazing, swallow. And I had to like keep reminding myself, like, no, don't drink that. It's pool water. You're dehydrated, but don't drink, wait until the end. So managed to get to the finish line to get on that one. And they're good. Like I think that's something that's really underrated in endurance sport is I think there's a bit of a culture problem in that we all feel as though we have this need to go out and sign up for proper Ironman distance races and spend, you know, $1,000 getting there. And we all need the most expensive bikes and the best kit and the best everything. Whereas in all honesty, we can just go out any weekend we like and set some crazy challenge and you can get a very similar level of satisfaction and achievement. So finishing like the backwards Ironman or the indoor Ironman felt almost as good as finishing a regular Ironman, right? Like there's obviously not the crowds and the hype that you get. So regular Ironmans are amazing, but in terms of just the sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, you can really get that just by doing things on your own. I think you don't need to buy into the whole consumer culture of spending. And I say this, obviously I've signed up for 2 Ironmans already this year, so I still am a big fan of Ironman, right? But you can still get a lot of the benefits with endurance sport without the whole culture of always signing up for the next big thing and spending all the money you have.
I know that Mike had a question on nutrition and whatnot, but before I just really wanted
an interesting one.
I just really wanted to, we probably spend a whole hour on that. But just before we move off of these challenges and whatnot, do you have any teasers for anything coming up next?
Yeah, I could give a teaser. So the big one I'm working on at the moment, and I'm not sure if this will go ahead, but it's quite a hard challenge, not so much physically, but more logistically. I want to try again with my brother. We're trying to organize at the moment to complete every Olympic event in 1 week. So when I say like not every sport, like every individual event. So like every running event, every swimming event, diving, equestrian, rowing, rugby, sailing, hockey, you know, everything in 1 week. So we're trying to see, number one, if that's actually time possible at the moment, and then we're going to start trying to schedule that, which would be our a big one. Yeah.
Doing a 10K swim and a marathon, man. They're just in the same week.
Yeah. No. I mean, the road race is 273 kilometers on the bike, plus all the track cycling events, plus the time trial. Yeah, it's huge. Plus the triathlon, plus the marathon, plus the 20K race walk. Yeah, there's a lot there. So I'm not sure. Like I say it as a teaser, but we don't know if it's actually going to work. But that's one we're trying to work on at the moment. Otherwise, I do want to see how many sprint distance triathlons I can do back to back if I leave on 90 minutes. So I'm going to have a go at that, I think, at one stage too. So see if I can just go. It's kind of like the last man standing races with running. Just do that with triathlon. Yeah.
That's actually a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's happened before. I haven't seen any videos on it, but I've heard of some old races that used to run, like in Sydney years ago, that used to be like that. But it's hard. So what we've got to do is we have to find a cycling route that you can ride pretty well uninterrupted, but also a pool that's going to be open for like at least 16 hours. So we have these things. I don't know if you guys have them in America. They're called ocean baths. So it's like a pool that's kind of attached to the ocean. So it's like all salt water comes into it and everything, but it's blocked out. So I think we're going to try and swim it in there. But then the cycling part's a little bit harder because there's a lot of traffic lights and intersections and whatnot. So I'm not sure what the best course of action is there, but that's one that we're going to try and do at some stage too. I think.
Keep me updated. Maybe we can maybe this summer we can do a collaboration on that. Because that piques my interest too. And I know
Yeah, you coming? Are you coming to Australia?
well no, I say like I would do it like we would do it here,
Yeah.
we do it there.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Yeah. Well, come to Australia, mate. We shoot some videos.
Yeah, maybe next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Thinking about that, like my first ever race was a sprint triathlon, and
Yeah.
it actually would be a good venue to do that. It's at like a state park in upstate New York, and it's
Yeah.
in like a nice little private, like or like closed off small open water
Yep.
lake. The bike route is like around the state park. There's really not that much traffic. There's only a couple turns where like you might even see a car, and like it's really not that bad. And then the run is like
Yep.
going around the lake, and
Huh.
it's just a quick 5K run around the lake, and it's nice and easy. And
Amazing.
it's certainly just do loops and jump in the water and keep going.
Yeah. Feel like I need to go there.
Yeah.
That feels like the perfect
Yeah, you
place.
come over here.
Yeah. Great idea.
We'll host you. We'll set you up. That would be good.
Hey, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
But
We'll see.
Before my nutrition question, I wanted to ask, there was a comment I wanted to make about what you were saying earlier about like endurance culture and like or triathlon culture. And I agree with that. I don't think that you always have to do an Ironman branded event in order to, I guess, maybe be stimulated or get a sense of achievement from it. It does kind of suck you in, I feel like, to like, oh, I have to be like an Ironman or a half Ironman, and I have to complete one of those races to feel like I've actually accomplished something in the sport. But one of my best race experiences, the one that I enjoyed the most, was actually a local duathlon. It was a run bike, run, and it was around like a local racetrack. Like, and they actually have NASCAR events there, but it's not like your typical like circle, like oval. It's actually has like quite a few like twists and turns to it. But like that's a race that I would go back to every single year and just do it for the fun of it. And I mean, there's maybe 200 people that do it, so big difference compared to like 3,000, 4,000 people doing an Ironman.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's good.
But onto nutrition. I was just scrolling through over here looking at some of the videos, and I did watch this one where you changed your diet. I think it was about, it says 7 months ago.
Yeah.
You were like looking to do some like more like whole food, clean eating, but were you also, it was also like low carb focused, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've listened to a few of your podcasts with you boys, and I was like, oh man, once we get on the topic of nutrition, because I hear you guys are like 100 grams of carbs per hour and all this, I'm like, oh no, they're not gonna like what my strategy of nutrition.
Well, I'm just gonna wait to hear what you say because I don't think that's wrong or anything. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. And if you're still like you changed it.
No, I can give a good update on my nutrition and whatnot. So what happened was that I put up the original video. So the first what I ate in a day, and it was like a crazy amount of carbs and noodles and cereal and everything. And then I got myself a CGM, and with that, I found that I had really high blood sugar. And so my initial response to that was I went to see a doctor, and he said, "Oh wow, yes, this is quite high." So the action we decided to take was to reduce my carb intake and try and lower my sugar. And that's when I posted that video 7 months ago that was, "Hi, I'm reduced, like this is what I eat in a day." And at the time, it was a lot of whole foods. I would say a much healthier diet than I was eating, but yeah, quite low carb. So it was high fat, high protein, low carb. Throughout that time, and this is only in the last week actually, it's just results back, but I went for more genetic screening to see what was going on with blood sugar. the screening has come back positive for a very rare type of diabetes called GCK Modi, so Modi 2, what it is. And it essentially just means that genetically I have very high, abnormally high blood sugar, just as a consistent thing across the. So the outcome from that is that I eat relatively low carb, but not crazy low carb. I think like a regular day of eating for me, I can just run through really quick is in the morning, I have like this whole grain, somewhat low carb bread with some, around 11 o'clock, I'll have some eggs with some avocado and cheese. Around 1 or 2 o'clock, I would probably have whatever leftovers for dinner last night. So it might just be like chicken and potato or chicken and rice. So that's meal in terms of carbs and protein. Regular dinners, nothing crazy with dinners, just eating for me. So I'm not smashing down heaps of pasta and heaps of rice like I used to, but I'm also not zero carb. Like there's a bit of a balance there. When it comes to training, so my nutrition sponsor is S Fuels, and I use their products for like electrolytes, carbohydrates. Things I like most about them is actually their lifestyle products. So they do like some protein powders and some life bars and things like that that are really handy for me because I can just eat them throughout the day. So that's the ones I really like. When it comes to like training, right? So I hear you guys are always talking about like, oh, we go for like 100 grams of carbs per hour, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the last episode I listened to you guys was like, oh, do you plan your nutrition the night before you ride? And I think most of you said, yeah, we always plan that out. And I was like, oh no, if they ask me this question and I'm honestly going to be really like upset with my answer. So I could talk you through Saturday, right? So my nutrition on Saturday, I did a 5.5 hour ride, which is on the Ironman Australia course. So I did 170 kilometers of the 180 kilometer course with, I think it was like an 8K run off the bike straight after that as well. So nutrition for that one, that morning I got up and I had some cereal and then some Nutella on. I rode for 2 hours and then I stopped at a petrol station and I got a donut and a chocolate milk. Then I rode for another 2 hours and I got it's like a Biscoff Cruffin. So it's a croissant / muffin. And I also had a Cruffin. Yeah. And then as well as that, I had another jam donut. And that was it. Apart from that, it was just water for the 6.5 hours. So I have no idea how many carbs that was. I have no idea like nutrition wise what it was. It was just, I was hungry at the 4 hour mark. So I stopped and I got some food. Apart from that, it was just water the entire way. So that's pretty typical for me. On my long rides, I'll usually just have maybe like some S Fuels electrolytes. Maybe I'll chuck in like 50 or 30 grams of their carb mix. But apart from that, I just like to use my long workouts as a chance to eat some of the foods that I tend not to eat throughout the week. So it's not the most professional approach to nutrition. I'm sorry, but it's I don't know. I just enjoy it.
Is that what you did for your Ironman race too, or how'd you feel that?
So for the Ironman race, I tend to go for roughly 60 grams of carbs per hour, but I have never gone for like a fixed amount that I would aim for. I always just go for if I feel hungry, I have more, and if I feel full, I'll stop eating, basically. Yeah. So I'm pretty like relaxed with like actual numbers. I tend to just go off feel a lot more. I tend to underfuel a lot of my training sessions. And so when I first started triathlon and I didn't know anything about proper nutrition or what I should be doing, I had these tubs of Powerade. And I used to mix them up and I thought that one scoop was 60 grams of carbs. And I'd come across somewhere that was like, oh, 60 grams is good per hour. And so I was having these and like going out for like 6 hour bike rides and doing all my huge training and thinking I was getting 60 grams per hour. But it was like 6 months later that I realized on the tub that you actually need 4 scoops to hit the full one serve. So I was only having 15 grams of carbs per hour, like pretty much the entire time I'd been doing triathlon, and thinking to myself, like I'd had heaps more. And so then on race day, I remember having like whatever they were giving out on course. And that was obviously a lot like properly mixed up. I just felt amazing because, oh my God, I've got so much energy. And I think there's something to be said for train low, race high, but there is also obviously something to be said for making sure your body can handle proper fueling in training. But I think with things like the milk marathon, the beer marathon, I've come to the conclusion that I have a pretty strong stomach. And so I don't need to practice the really high fueling. Like I'm pretty confident that I can handle most things in my stomach. So on race day, I can load up my bottle with. I'm planning this year just to use one bottle full of the S Fuels race gel and just smash down carbs as much as I want with that. Like anytime I feel like I can take on more, take on more. So I'll definitely race high, but in terms of training, yeah, I'm pretty laid back with my fueling on training, and I feel as though I'm quite fat adapted. Like I have done 6 hour rides on nothing but water before, so like a
Wow.
fairly easy ride. But yeah, hungry
I'm not-
afterwards, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's certainly not advice. I'm just saying that the things that I have done.
I'm not like you've heard us saying like we do 100 grams carbs per hour, which is true. But I also try to do, for example, if I'm doing like a 90-minute, 2 hour or 3 hour soup like an
Mm.
aerobic like zone 2, heart rate below 120, 130,
Mm,
I actually won't fuel those rides that much. I'll
yeah.
usually start it fasted. If it's like first thing, I won't take on anything before. And then maybe like after the 90-minute mark, then I'll start taking something a little bit on. I'll take on a bit more if I have a runoff or a swim later in the day. But I do agree, and I do think that there is something to be said about not, fueling every session with 100 grams of carbs per
Mm,
hour. I do think, like just like
Yeah.
in everything in life, I think you need to balance. I think you need to, fuel some of your more specific race specific sets with the way that you're going to fuel races, and then on some of the easier aerobic days, yeah, teaching your body how to use more fat for fuel. I think there could be something
yeah.
to be said about that.
No, I fully agree with that, honestly. And in terms of doing a race specific set, like let's say you were to go out and do 6 hours at Ironman, race intensity or whatever it might be, like really a really specific workout. Then if you underfuel for that, then you're not really giving your legs a chance to experience like the
Yep.
full intensity, because you just won't be able to perform at that full intensity. So yeah, I agree that if you are like for those big key sessions, it does make sense to um, get a lot more fuel in. And for those ones, I just stop at more petrol stations, drink more chalky milk, and pack more S Fuels race.
There you go. On the topic of
Yeah.
nutrition, do you still wear a CGM, or did you gain valuable insights and then stop wearing it?
Yeah, exactly. So I haven't worn one for probably 4 or 5 months now. I actually think I will get another one again soon just to test out a few more meals. And I mean, with my whole philosophy with eating now is just eating a generally healthy diet and where possible trying to make easy decisions to keep sugar levels lower. Like unfortunately for me, it's going to be a chronic issue for the rest of my life that my sugar will always be a bit higher. Fortunately, it tends not to be the case that you get the major complications with diabetes, with the type of diabetes that I have. But it is still somewhat good practice to just, where possible, try and keep your sugar levels lower. So even if I didn't have diabetes, it would probably still be a worthwhile practice just to wear one and say like, oh, for some reason, if I eat this meal at this time, it's really bad. Whereas if I eat that same meal right after a workout, I get away with it. So you can just sort of play around with your diet for a few different health things.
Yeah, I've worn a CGM before, and even actually during racing. There was you've probably heard of Super Sapiens, and I don't know if you were using
Yeah.
that or a different one. But using
Yeah.
that racing, you can get some pretty interesting insights, although I sometimes found it hard for myself to at least get my blood sugar levels up as high as they wanted it and holding it there
Mm,
for of a race. But that was also long before I was trying to aim for 100 grams of carbs per hour. At that
yeah.
point, I was probably doing close to about 60.
Yeah, I actually have a theory too that my chronically high sugar levels, because you're saying you found it hard to keep your levels high, whereas I would always find it hard to get mine low. Even if I was to do like a 6 hour ride with like no fueling, it would still be high. I think that it actually plays a role in why I seem to be able to underfuel a lot of sessions and still feel pretty good. Whereas for most people, they probably would experience a massive sugar crash and like bonk. But for me, I can go fairly consistently over a long time without experiencing any sugar lows. So that's probably why you should not take any advice from me in terms of nutrition, because I seem to be a bit of an outlier there.
Have you experienced any bonking like in races or during key sessions?
Not in races. The only time I've ever really bonked was when I remember I first started training and I tried to do my first 100K ride, so 60 miles. And I got to like the 90K mark and just wanted to like fall asleep on the side of the road. Like I was so tired, but I was just like, oh, 10 more kilometers to go. I can get there. So charged on through and ate like a ridiculous amount of food when I got home. But since then, honestly, I don't think I've ever really bonked on a session to the point that I had to stop and eat, or stop and rest.
Didn't you cramp? You cramped though, right? I remember watching one of your race recaps, I think.
Yeah, oh yeah, I've definitely cramped. Yeah, but I don't know. Honestly, that one was a bit of a mystery last year because I cramped straight out of the swim, and yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, that one, because I've done a lot of other sessions at the same intensity, with the same nutrition strategy and never cramped.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mystery, that one. I don't know. I think it was just like a rough day. I don't know if I was fighting off a bit of sickness or what it was, but I tried to like analyze it and think back, but I was like, everything I've done is like the same as what I've done for every other race or key session I've done. So don't know.
Kind of back to YouTube and whatnot. But I was wondering, how do you monetize? Do you monetize your YouTube channel?
No, no. So
Okay.
because I use copyrighted music,
Okay,
I
that's
don't
what
make
I was
any
gonna,
money off
because
it.
I remember I'll admit one of the reasons, and maybe one of the bigger reasons why I subscribed to you was because I thought when I watched that Day in the Life, you had the best music. I'm like, this is awesome.
That's good. I
I
like
was
it.
just wondering personally, like, how does he? Because I know I'm trying to start monetizing my fitness one here soon,
Mm,
and I've actually started. I got the idea from you from using copyrighted music. I'm like, how does he monetize it if he's using all this music? So I was
yeah.
wondering if he had a hack or something, but yeah, I guess not.
No, unfortunately not. But so for me, there's like a trade-off, right? Where I could use like royalty-free music and make some money off the videos. But number one, I'm not sure if they would get as like if people would enjoy them as much if they didn't have that like fun music on there. But number two, I find the music part to be like the main creative thing that I really like. So I love
Yeah,
editing and making videos to music. Like I'll often hear a song that, "Oh, I'd love to make a video to that song." So then I'll like go ahead and make a video to that song. So like with all my main videos, they're like songs that I've had in a playlist for years, and they're like, oh, one day I'd love to make a video to this song. So I was like, yeah, that's a big part of what I actually enjoy about making the videos. And I could, yeah, I could use copyright free music, but I don't know if I would enjoy making videos anywhere near as much.
it's funny you say that. 'Cause
But yeah,
sometimes if I'm filming a training session or something, as I am doing the training session, I'm listening to music. If suddenly like a song like hits me or something, like I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it. I'll screenshot it and like I'll screenshot
yeah.
the song, and then when I go back to start editing, I'm like, what song did I really like? Like, oh, that one. So that one. But
Yeah. No,
that's
I love it. Yeah, that's the same way I work as well. It's good.
well. Any other questions from Seid and Mike?
So next race, is it Western Australia or is it Ironman Australia?
So I'm in Australia on May 5th, and then Western Australia on December, like early December sometime. I don't know the actual date.
Nice. Any
Yeah.
specific goals or just going to have a good race?
I think with I'm in Australia, I'm just going to have a good race. I had a pretty rough day there last year. I think a good day for me would be 9:45. That would be like a good performance for me on that course. It's not the fastest course. And then I'm in Western Australia. Depending on how I go at I'm in Australia, I think that one would be a good 9 hour Ironman attempt
Nice.
because it's very flat and very fast. Yeah.
That'd be good.
But we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Maybe a Kona qualification in the future.
Yeah. Well, see, so here's the thing: is I don't think I would ever race Kona even if I qualified, just because it costs so much money. Especially like for you guys, it's probably not as bad going from America to Kona, but to go from Australia to Kona is like you're going from thousands to like tens of thousands of dollars if you want to race Kona, and I don't know if I could justify that expense. Like Nice. So last year at Ironman Australia, I don't know if it was the same for Ironmans over there in America, but they did the roll down for Nice and no one took any slots. Like probably 10 people took a Nice slot. And the announcer was literally there at the end going, does anyone want to go to Nice? Oh, and he did the same for Kona actually. So not all the women took Kona slots. And so there was like a clip, I'll have to find it. And it's the announcer for Ironman going, does anyone here who finished the race yesterday want to go to Kona? Because you could just go up and take a Kona slot. So it was quite disappointing in that regard. But yeah, it's I think they're going to find it hard again to fill slots this year because it's just so hard for people to go all the way over there and do that race, especially coming from Australia. So if you guys want a Kona qualification, come
Yeah,
down here and race.
Seid, don't do Texas. Go
Yeah,
Kona.
go to Australia.
Go
Yeah,
do
yeah.
Kona.
No, I'm canceling Texas in 2 weeks. That's done.
What age group are you in?
I'm 18 and 24.
Oh, you'd almost definitely qualify. None of those guys can afford to go to Kona, so yeah, you'd almost definitely get it.
Say maybe we may have a new race on your schedule in December.
Yeah. Yeah. Come down.
We'll see.
Yeah.
If you qualify, we're gonna make you swim from Australia to Hawaii, though.
Yeah.
You might get there
That's
just
good.
in time.
Not make that swim, I'd definitely die. I cannot do that.
I don't know if anyone could.
All right. Well, I know Lachlan. It's in the morning, and Lachlan, you're kind of still at work, so you gotta head out here in a few minutes. But before,
Yeah. Don't tell my boss because I've got a meeting in 8 minutes.
before, there's one more thing. You probably heard it, and we always like to do. This will actually tie in pretty well with how we've talked about nutrition and whatnot. But we like to do a little gel, carb mix product, something that you've had in your recent training session or whatever that you've.
Yeah.
It could be a donut, it could be a cruffin, especially since you're in Australia.
Yeah.
Maybe one of your favorite gas station pickups that we might not have access to here, or just something that in your training session that you really enjoyed.
Okay. So my favorite official proper nutrition product that you could buy in America would be like the S Fuels Race Gel. That's like my favorite one if I actually am trying to fuel a session properly.
What flavor? Do they have?
I think they only have one flavor. I think it's just like a red raspberry sweet sugary flavor. Yeah, it's nice.
Well, I have a package from S Fuels coming. I bought it from Babbitt from Babbittville. Got me a discount.
Yeah, nice.
I haven't had it yet, but it's coming.
Yeah. Okay. And then my go-to is probably chocolate milk. So that's the same for running and cycling. But they have these iced coffees in Australia. So you can get one that's chocolate and coffee mixed together. So you can get a bit of caffeine with that. And then my go-to food is always an almond croissant. So I don't know if you guys would have that, but it's like this. It's a croissant, but in the middle of it's like this almond butter that's full of sugar and it's really sweet and it's lovely. So I'll often grab like 3 of those and I'll stuff them in my back cycling jersey and ride around with them, and that's my nutrition done for the day.
That's all you need: 3 almond croissants and a chocolate milk.
Yeah. That's it.
Great. Well, I know we didn't even get to your portion of the episode when you're going to ask us questions, but we'll have to have you on for part 2.
Definitely. I'd love to come back, guys. It's great fun. So anytime you're happy to have me, I'd love to be here.
Maybe after Ironman Australia, we can do a race debrief.
Great idea. Yeah, absolutely.
We
talk about that. We didn't even get to talk about training or anything. You guys can carry on with the podcast because I've got to drop off, but you guys can talk about your trail. I love hearing the training updates each week.
That's going to wrap it up for here as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Try Hard, and we'll catch you back here next week. Will be the last one before Texas. So time to get hyped for that. All right. See you guys in the next one.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.